This episode of the WP Minute is brought to you by Pressable. You know what the best hosting feels like? Nothing. No panic alerts, no mystery downtime, no "hey, is the site down?" Slack messages. That's the Pressable experience. WordPress hosting so reliable you forget it's even there. We keep your site fast, secure, and up 100% of the time, so you can get back to building, selling, blogging, or binging cat videos. No judgment, whatever you want to do. Go to Pressable.com/WP Minute and try hosting that disappears in all the right ways. Pressable.com/WP Minute. Pressable.com/WP Minute. Thanks, Pressable, for supporting the show. Hey, it's Matt from the WP Minute. We are going to chat about Matt Mullenweg's keynote at WordCamp US 2025. I'm going to share some clips that I thought were interesting to opine and to share my opinion on. Some of the more important pieces, in my opinion, to how Matt's take on WordPress impacts WordPress professionals, what we're doing with the software, community, et cetera, et cetera. I certainly recommend watching the whole thing if you want. It's about an hour long with Q&A. If not, this will be a bit of a preview of that keynote if you didn't want to spend the hour watching it. So you'll hear some clips about Matt. I'm going to react to them. I'm going to share my opinion. As always, the WPMinute.com/subscribe. Let me set the stage real quick. No pun intended. Very much more subdued approach to this keynote for sure. I did appreciate that. In fact, I'd have to double check the timestamps, but he was getting into Q&A at by minute 20. Which was a bit of a refresher. This is much more of his summer update, so I know I'm not trying to say this was a state of the word or there should have been more stats and hype around it, but generally I feel like there's a lot more meat to the summer update bone, if you will. But I did appreciate some of the brevity here, and it really just feels like he's heads down and WordPress is heads down, and therefore we should all be heads down. And I'm going to share a little bit of my opinion today, of course, but it's also going to be sort of a lesson of where I think we need to go with all of this stuff in order to, make true progress. So here we go. Here's the opening remark that I found interesting.
WordPress is so unique because we're not just a product, we're a movement. We're people who come together because we believe in something. Actually, we believe in a lot of things. Not always the same things, but some of the same things. We have basically we believe in democratizing publishing as one of our core movements. We have the GPL as our constitution, the kind of fundamental document underlying the code that gives the four freedoms to everyone. The freedom to use the software for any purpose, the freedom to see how the software works, freedom to modify it, and freedom to redistribute it as the four freedoms. But we also rise beyond just that document, and we kind of think about things in a positive some way. We think about ecosystems. We think about how we come together and what the results are on iterations of our actions.
So the thing about that statement, especially when he talks about the four freedoms, and how we think of things in a positive way, and that we don't necessarily always agree on things, there's a few threads I want to pull on. I think it's obvious for anybody who's followed this stuff for a long time is does he really mean this? And by we, does he mean we collectively as a community or we as just in Automattic? Either way, this is the thing that always brings me back to WordPress, whether or not it's coming out of Matt Mullenweg's mouth, Mary's mouth, Josepha, or anyone else. This is the core of it. This is it. This is it for me. And I think that regardless of what Matt's doing or Automattic or any other brand that's impacting WordPress either positively or negatively, I think this is the thing that makes me want to rally around WordPress. We're going to talk about that elephant in the room in about a second as he addresses it. So I kind of see this as an acknowledgement slightly, very slightly, to be oh yeah, community is important and we can't do it without you all, even though he didn't say that, would have loved to hear him say that and acknowledge that. But this is what brings me back to WordPress, and this is why the future of the WP Minute, the future of the stuff that I want to do is about this, unapologetically, unabashedly, to say, I want WordPress to succeed. It doesn't mean I won't be critical. It doesn't mean it involves everyone. It means that I want WordPress as an ideal, as a piece of software, as a community to succeed, because it does empower, it can empower a single person or a group of people or a community or a city, a town, a village, et cetera, et cetera.
There is a little bit of an elephant in the room that's not just PHP or Aaron Jorbin's tattoo, which is also an awesome elephant if you haven't met Aaron Jorbin yet. And that is last year on this stage, I highlighted some ecosystem members, and it's kicked off a whole media thing and everything like that. I'm not going to talk about that today. So if you're looking for that, that's not what today's presentation is. The quick update is it's working its way through the legal system. We trust in the fairness of the courts. If there's any commentary, I'll just say that there was a settlement conference. I showed up, the other CEO did not. But it is working its way through that. And that's my only comment on that whole rigmarole. But it did get us like kind of more press than we've ever had in a while. So that was interesting, being WordPress being the main character on the internet for a little while. People hopping on, like making themselves, trying to get in the middle of it, everything like that. It was a pretty interesting process.
I'm not a lawyer, but I asked ChatGPT, as many of us do, if both parties in a case, in a lawsuit, need to be at a settlement conference. Bottom line, here's the answer from ChatGPT. Bottom line, settlement conferences usually require both sides or their representatives with full settlement authority to attend, but attendance may be in person, video, or through a representative, depending on the case and the court order. So I don't know, did a representative show up and not the CEO of WP Engine? The point is yes, he acknowledged the elephant in the room. Once again, not going to go too deep into it. He didn't go too deep into it. Basically kind of saying like, we're not going to talk about it, which is probably was just a sort of barrier for a question, for a Q&A round that came up later on in the conference. But it is what it is at this point. We all kind of understand it. We all kind of know it. Like I said, I think the nod to the community was him trying to be like, yeah, I kind of screwed up and we kind of need the community. At least that's the way that I see it. But the point is this felt much more heads down. We got to get back to work because of the pressures of, well, the lawsuit, competition, AI, are people dropping off and aging out of WordPress? Like there's a lot of external factors pointing at WordPress, though it doesn't look like it's losing ground to the CMS market, but still, doesn't mean you just rest on your 20-year-old laurels. You have to be able to continue to innovate. And for once, like as cut and dry as this presentation was, I felt like, okay, let's all get back to work.
I met with some YouTubers earlier in the week. Yeah, we want to be present. We want to be multimodal and just where the people are. So we can like bring the knowledge of WordPress and the ability how to use WordPress, which is one of the most incredible skills you can have in your life because it enables you to do so many other things, to everything. YouTube in particular, we basically like almost tripled our YouTube subscribers. So good job to that team.
Okay, 2 points about this one. I won't belabor it because I think those of you that follow me kind of know a lot of my thoughts around this particular topic. But there's two things here. When a brand comes to me, and I have a lot of brands that sponsor the WP Minute, I'm very fortunate in that, but I also feel like we do some really good work and we do some unique work in the WordPress content space. And if they come to us with like this request to be multimodal and to be everywhere, you often see this at the C-suite level, like Mullenweg is saying here. I mean, I might be sensationalizing it just a little bit, but my point is whenever you get these sort of tasks for being everywhere and being involved in the community and showing up and being in the conversation, I don't think when a brand forces that as a task, that good things come from it. When everything is measured and metered and gone through with a fine-tooth comb, from a branding perspective, especially when you're trying to like be in the conversation, if you're forcing it is just that. And Automattic and its multitude of products they're all over the place. They're either nowhere or everywhere and in too many places and too fractured. And somebody just needs to love WordPress and be the person who is out there making the case for WordPress. I thought that's what Jamie was supposed to do. I know this is where I get opinionated on my soapbox, But like, it's been over a year for this YouTube thing. Where is the outreach? We've had over a year. Was everything on pause because of this lawsuit? That's the struggle I have with this whole lawsuit and this, I guess, corporate thinking, for lack of a better phrase. Now, Pressable is a sponsor of the WP Minute. We wouldn't be able to do it without Pressable. Automatic company. They've kind of ran as an independent startup to, a certain extent, so it doesn't feel like it's certainly not WordPress.com. It's certainly not Jetpack. I've had conversations with Jetpack folks before, and it's just very, we can only do a little bit. We can only say so much. Okay, well, then we're never going to really change that narrative about Jetpack or WordPress.com. And you need to be able to share and open up. Like, you need to want to do this, not just task to do this. Because that's what WordPress really needs. WordPress needs the cheerleader to say, hey, look, love WordPress, want it to succeed. Here's what we're faced with now. Here's what we got. Here's how we can go to market. Here's how we can address these concerns. Here's how we can rally more people around us. Here's how we can compete with the competition. I know we're shortchanged in one area, but here's how we're going to approach it. And here's how we're going to invest in those areas. And if we never invest in those areas, then here's why. That's what we need. That's the community person WordPress needs.
And that is, who has tried one of the AI browsers out there? A couple people. Okay, next year I hope all the hands go up. So there's a few different versions of this. There's like Playwright, there's like Claude has got something in beta. Basically this idea where your AI controls your computer. The one I like the best so far is from Perplexity. They basically took Chrome and made this thing called Comet. And you can see a little bit of it in the screenshot. Basically what it does is it's your browser. It's your browser. When you import from Chrome, it's really slick because it's got you're logged into everything. You're logged into Gmail, your WordPress, your WordPress.org, everything like that. But you have this kind of persistent chatbot on the side. That's actually pretty clever. And you can just ask pretty clever. And you can just ask it. That doesn't need to be an MCP server. And that doesn't need to be an MCP server. There doesn't need anything specifically built for this. However, many of the investments in way we've coded WordPress, semantic HTML, with semantic accessibility and things. You can actually just go into Gutenberg. You can actually just go into Gutenberg or WP Admin and just say, hey, anything. Move this block around and make the second paragraph wittier and add an image around and make the second paragraph wittier and add an image and it just does it.
Okay, this is a deep one. I won't spend too much time on this section either, I hope. But the AI thing, I'm still right down the middle with AI. Love what I can do with AI. It fails in a lot of areas. It succeeds in a lot of areas. I haven't seen it do the stuff that is so amazing that everyone talks about, especially in coding, especially in research, especially in writing. Every use case I have for it, even in ideating and future thinking and comparisons, it's very, very bare bones in terms of the results I get. However, because it does shrink a lot of the gaps in time for a lot of stuff that I do, there is a productivity level there for me. And I'm saying that because AI is huge. This is something I asked Mullenweg about last year at the 2024 WordCamp US YouTube dinner that we did. And I had asked him, because I never heard him talk, up until this point. I haven't heard him talk about open source AI from one of the leading AI projects in the world. I would have want to hear more about how we're going to incorporate open source AI with WordPress. And I'm paraphrasing. This was late at night, and obviously he was on the precipice of about to destroy a lot of what we built. And I had asked him about, where do you see integration of WordPress and AI? And if so, is that going to be open source LLM? And where do you think they can win? And he sort of kind of said, the open source side will never have basically the horsepower that OpenAI or Claude will have because of the billions, if not trillions of dollars they'll eventually have, and just buying the hardware it needs to process this stuff. At least now anyway, or at least in the next, 10 years. So it's interesting to hear him come around to thinking of this idea of the browser-based AI context. And the one credit I always give to Matt is, and the one thing I really do appreciate is a lot of it is forward thinking, is future forward thinking. One, because I think he's able to, because he's at a particular echelon where he can meet and talk to these heads of technology and to really understand like where all this tech is going. So he's definitely in the driver's seat to be in a lot of these conversations, which gets him privy to a lot of the stuff. So the point is I think he's probably right on the money, and it's not something that I had ever really thought of, but like I just got access to Comet, which is Perplexity's AI browser. His thinking about WordPress being adaptable inside of a AI browser is really intriguing to me. And I'm just going to like kind of leave it at that. I don't want to go too down this rabbit hole because I could. But if you think of like dragging around Gutenberg blocks like he's talking about, and we have a lot of these plugins and services who are building AI wrappers and tools to build websites. Well, what if you could just your browser could do that for you, because it has the control of your keyboard and mouse, and it knows WordPress, and it can interoperate with it. It's pretty cool, and it's not something I've thought of. It's like disrupting AI before AI is even really, the dust is even settled. So interesting space right there, and I would keep an eye on it, like he urges us to.
There's a little something as well that I want to soft launch here that Automattic is launching, and that is called Telex. So think of Telex like a V0 or a Lovable, but specific for WordPress and building Gutenberg blocks. So you can go to telex.automattic.ai right now and check it out, and you can actually type in some pretty rich functionality in there. I don't have it for the video, but someone actually asked it to make the Doom game. And it created that and put it in a Gutenberg block and then ran it inside a playground. It was a mind-blowing moment. So this is again, very beta, very experimental as we talk about. But what you get at the end of it is just a zip file that you can install as a plugin to any WordPress in the world, or a Playground instance or anything like that. So these things are pretty exciting.
Except it didn't work. I downloaded it and tried my hand at Telex, and it's pretty cool. It is, what you expect from a chat bot window. It's very par for the course if you're used to Replit or Lovable or Bolt. It's got that sort of familiarity, which is important. And the key thing is that it is being baked into native WordPress. And with a grain of salt, this is still an experimental batch, and I'm joking that it didn't work. Well, I'm not joking; it didn't work. But I'm also not expecting everything to work when you have the badge experimental on it, and it's not even an alpha or a beta. Like, this is very early days, which I fully understand. I did a video on it. I'll link it up in the description. You can kind of see my my reaction to it and sort of my other thoughts on it. But the key thing here is, as I was saying in the previous segment, is how does WordPress evolve with AI, and who wins the AI integration into WordPress? Do we simply get an AI API options page by default in core WordPress, and then we can integrate with whichever chat LLM service we want? Is there some kind of deal struck with an OpenAI or Claude or something from Salesforce? I can only imagine the conversations that are happening behind the scenes with, we just talked about browser-based AI context. And he does allude to it in a segment that I didn't clip, where he talks about having 46% of the web, and imagine what WordPress can do with AI and stuff like that. I mean, people must be knocking down the doors trying to say, hey, look, how do we incorporate AI into this massive footprint that WordPress has across the web? I mean, this could be a good thing where businesses and investments say, hey, look, WordPress is important because of that footprint and because of how standardized and open source it all is. So it helps with AI to learn this stuff, not only the structure of a WordPress site, but the content inside of a WordPress site. This could be a benefit to Automattic and Matt, or they look at him and go, we don't need you anymore because AI can build this stuff and because the CMS might not matter anymore. I mean, two totally different paths, but check it out, telix.automatic.ai. I'll link up my video so you can watch the whole thing of what I did. It's cool. And somebody did comment, somebody from my career in podcasting, he's also very technical, and he's also a podcaster. And when I posted this on LinkedIn, he responded like, "Oh, what is this going to do that what I can't do with Cursor?" And in almost like I can already do this. Why would they even waste their time on this? And the point is, well, first of all, this is super early days, so you can't even really hope that this is going to be a thing until it maybe hits another version and there's an alpha tag on it. But what this signals is a core experience of WordPress, a potential core experience of WordPress with AI right out of the box. And, to my colleague from the podcast world who is technical, who has Cursor, who knows how to develop this stuff, it's not for them. Much like Gutenberg isn't for a professional web designer. I mean, it can be. And those who are just like, no, it doesn't have this, it doesn't, well, then move on and get another tool. That's the beauty of WordPress. So when I see something like this, I go, great. The common person, the above average person can take to WordPress, chat with it, build whatever it wants, or do that in the context of a browser-based AI system and build whatever they want, where they don't have to have all the tooling and all of the knowledge to make something really bespoke, first word that comes to my mind, but really advanced or whatever. I think there's a point where, you hire somebody and they help you with the rest of the way, or they start from scratch and they do it over again. But the point is like, I think this brings that innovation to the core of WordPress to the masses, and whatever shape or form or who's selling this potential product in the future, whether it's .com or Automattic or Jetpack, time will tell, but it's still somewhat exciting.
Hello, Matt. My question is regarding, for the past 22 years, you've been building WordPress. For the past 20 years, building Automattic. I think the level of commitment that you have with the company and the open source is amazing. So many years on this. I would like to see how do you imagine the next 10 years of Automattic and WordPress?
The next 10 years. Well, one of the most interesting things for me, and one thing I've had a lot of success with, so like when younger people come ask me something, it's like, it's amazing the effect of compounding. And when you work on something, even just a little bit every single day, how that develops your context and your knowledge and your efficiency and your everything, and just the effects that you can have for working on something a very long period of time. At various points in WordPress's history, I was like, okay, it's like a 10-year overnight success. And if you study compounding, it can start very, 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 very small. But when you start to get into year 10, 20, 30, 40, the effects can be quite, quite large. And so I do study a lot of longer-term organizations and longer-term companies to see, like when you go to an Apple at like 50 years old, or a Microsoft, or what's allowing them to still be at the forefront of technology and innovation? What have they done? How have they passed the torch in culture? How do they leverage the wisdom of the longer tenured members and always bring in fresh people and not get too ossified in the way they did things previously? And every culture is different, and Automattic is a fairly unique one. WordPress is a fairly unique one, actually, as well. They're very related, actually. They've influenced each other quite a bit. Being radically distributed, being open source at our core, also being multi-product. So Automattic has our most WordPress-centric products like Pressable and WordPress.com. I've found a lot of fun for me as well has been working on the apps, like open sourcing Pocket Cast. So now there's an open source podcasting player. Day one, Tumblr, which someday we're going to get on WordPress. Not this year, but like someday we're going to switch those 500 million blogs to WordPress. And so I find a lot of fun in that. So if I think about my next 10 years, the things I am certain won't change, that speed of iteration is going to be really, really important. Customer centricity. I hope I'm still doing tech support. And I actually think I need to stay connected, and I learn so much every time I do. What I don't know what it's going to look like is how many people are at the company? How many AI agents are at the company? What is the technology landscape that we're building on? Is there some new computing paradigm, which isn't VR, but maybe it's like an AR, or maybe it's a contact lens we wear, or maybe like what's the future APIs of the future? Is it MCP, or is it GraphQL, or is it something else? Or like, what is it that is going to happen? So I don't try to make predictions that far out for those things. But I do try to think, like, what are the fundamental building blocks that we're putting in place today? And some of those are cultural, and some of those are product. So on the cultural side, it is the things I talked about before, of really working on communication, performance, accountability, energy management, staying with people also, like being with people through the ups and the downs and all the beautiful humanity that you experience the longer that you have the opportunity to know each other. Then on the product side, it's things like our investment into Gutenberg. And in particular, I'm excited about this collaboration and what that enables. And in a lot of ways, WP Admin feels very similar to what it was a few years ago, even though we've done literally thousands of upgrades. But when I think about that experience, when someone logging into WP Admin and then like seeing the real-time cursor of someone else logged in, like that feels like pretty, wow, amazing. And when I see things like these chatbots that can be built at a contributor day and other things, I'm like, wow, that's kind of pretty incredible. And if these things are starting to be more enabled by new APIs in the browser or new frontier models or whatever it is, like what can we create? So I'm very much looking forward to co-creating with all of y'all. So thank you.
Okay, so I don't want to really put a grade on this response. It's super hard to predict a decade now with AI breathing down our neck. What I will say is, in comparison to him answering this question, I think in WordCamp Europe, or was it Asia? I can't remember when it was. Somebody asked him sort of the same question about like the future of Automattic, the future of WordPress, and that one was just like, it was a depressing answer. At the last major WordCamp, it was almost like he sounded defeated. He sounded like, why would you even ask me about the future? At least this one was trending in a slightly more upbeat prediction. What I still can't wrap my head around is, I think it's okay to, well, I don't even know. Like, I'm even wrestling with responding to this. I think it's almost okay to say, here's where, because the person who asked the question is also, mentioned Automattic. So it's okay to talk about like all the other products and like where you see that future going. I'm wondering if there is, like, he's not thinking of all of these other products and it's just WordPress. So then what happens to all of these products? And by all these products, he mentioned Pocket Cast. Again, in my podcasting world, love it. It's my daily driver for podcast apps. They're investing in Podcast 2.0, which is an open source movement, just like WordPress for the RSS feed. Really happy and love the fact that they're doing that. I'm a paying customer for the pro version. I signed up for VideoPress, which is a Jetpack module / product to host videos on the WP Minute when we launch our course site. I use WooCommerce to sell merch on the WP Minute. And I'm wondering, like, when do we talk about the synergy of the suite of Automattic tools and how all of this stuff comes together? The Clay acquisition. I've been using Clay as a relationship manager for the WP Minute. It's freaking fantastic. One of my favorite products to start to use of the year. And I'm hoping it gets love, because I look at everything else and I'm like, I used to use Simple Note as my daily driver note-taking app, and I stopped only because I started using Bear to write, and then Bear was a note-taking app, and it kind of won the day for me in terms of the muscle memory. But Automattic has a ton of great products. I mean, WooCommerce. Like, when are we going to just like really pave the path of how we see Automattic marching forward with a commercial product? And maybe he's just not ready to say it. And maybe that's the fair assessment to this. Maybe he's just unwilling to say it yet. Maybe it's a timing thing. Maybe it's like we only say, we reserve that for State of the Word. But look, here's where I stand. If there was a commercial version of WordPress that was, air quotes, better, let's take Telix, for example, which he talked about, and it's the AI tool to build stuff inside native WordPress. If he did that, if he incorporated Telix into WordPress, commercial version of WordPress that you could only buy from, let's say, Automatic or WordPress.com, but you could still download it and use it however you want, I'm fine with that. Like, I am 100% okay with Automatic having commercial endeavors, having ways to monetize, having ways to stay healthy and sustainable, so long as it means that you're bringing the open source side of it on that ride. And if 20% of the goods, there's 20% of this like feature-rich stuff goes into the commercial side and we get the rest of the 80%, fine. I would love that, in fact, because that means that there's a clear path and a clear mission forward, and you're healthy, and you're selling stuff, and business is good. And by the way, we're taking all that stuff that we're learning, we're baking it into our product. 80% of it goes into the open source side, 20% of it is reserved for the commercial side. Sign me up. Where does Matt see the future of Automatic and WordPress coming together with all these products? An easy-to-use website builder meets e-commerce, meets media with Pocket Casts and podcast hosting. I worked for a company that he did a seed investment in at Castos, so buy them and let me run it. But that's the thing. Like, we have all this stuff. What does that future look like? And I think that's always the missing piece from that vision statement. And maybe he just doesn't have it yet, but I feel like somebody should at some point, because we want Automatic to thrive, and we want Automatic to stay in business, because it's very important to the success of WordPress, in my opinion. It's the WP Minute, the WPMinute.com/subscribe. Stay connected to that newsletter and the podcast. Search for the WP Minute wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channels. Spread the word to other WordPress professionals that you love getting your information from the WP Minute. Thanks for listening to the WP Minute, part of the Matt Report Media Network. This episode wouldn't be possible without our amazing pillar sponsors, Pressable, Kinsta, GoDaddy, 20i, and Elementor. These brands are supporting WordPress media and helping us invest in your future as a WordPress professional. Our Foundation Plus sponsors like Hostinger, Big Scoots, Stellar WP, Personalized WP, Weglot, and PatchStack help us keep the lights on. Thanks to all of our members in the WP Minute Slack channel, which you can join too. Head on over to thewpminute.com/support to get access. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to hit the share button or tell a friend about this podcast. See you in the next one.